Hey guys, so if you just joined us live on Facebook and you're an athlete over the age of about 40 years old, this is exactly what you need to hear right now. We've got Des Wilkinson live with us, and we've got Stan Madiri, who's our high performance coach. And we thought we'd pick Des's brains on a couple of what's his secret to performing over almost half a century, Des?
not quite.
That's an incredible amount of time.
Well, it is a long time, and I'm really grateful and blessed actually to have been able to be in the sport for that long.
Yeah,
and it's most certainly been a colourful journey, and it hasn't been easy because you can imagine over that number of years I've had to encounter quite a lot of injuries and setbacks. So I can go through some scenarios there now, if you like. I mean, I've just to give you the roll call, I've had surgery on both of my Achilles tendons.
Wow.
One in 1982, one in 1990, and both times I was written off by the consultants, saying that just give up the sport, but I didn't. 4 years ago, I tore my left rotator cuff whilst I was hurdling at the World Championships in 2015. I didn't even know I'd done it. I just thought I had a stiff shoulder. And again, the consultant, it was torn off the bone, and the consultant said,
wow.
You're 55. I think I was 55. No, I was 53 at the time.
Right.
And he said, look, just go and take up something a bit more easy going, like bowls or something. So that was like a red rag to the bull. So I said, no, I'm going to come back from this, and I did.
Good, excellent, good. So, I mean, the first question has to be, Des, why and how do you transition from seniors to masters level athletics? And just for those people that don't know, what's the difference between seniors and masters level?
So, as a senior, you could be a senior from the age of 20, right up until the age for men. Now it's actually 35, but when I first started masters, it was 40. So if you're good enough as a senior, you could probably compete against seniors at younger age than that, as I did when I was kind of 18. I was able to equip myself against the maturer folk. So masters for men now is 35. It was 40 at the time for me, and to my kind of mid 30s onwards, I kind of knew that I was coming to the end of my senior career. The hurdles are 3'6" high, so that's 42 inches, and I think as I started to age, I probably reduced an inch or two as well. So the top of the hurdle almost, it was beginning to look like it was coming up to my neck rather than my hip. So I was struggling. I was running, for the club, Luton Athletic Club, and I said, right, what I'll do now. So I was around about 35, 36. I'm gonna start preparing to run as a master. I was introduced to the masters scene by my cousin, who was a very successful sprinter. She won world and European gold medals in 100 and 200 meters, and I've never really thought about doing masters athletics, even though with a 25-year athletics career, it was would have been very hard to kind of hang up the spikes. So she encouraged me and said, look, just come and watch me at the British Champs, and I did at Windsor. I think it was back in 2000 or something like that. And I was totally blown away by it. It was, from the ages of 35 for women at the time, 40 for men, going up to infinity, the levels of performance were astonishing, and it really did. I didn't need much to motivate me to want to do it. Yeah. So I just knew that as a 40-year-old, the hurdles were going to go down to 3'3", which is 99 inches. So I started training over that height, and I started to prepare. I did my research into what's required to be a masters athlete. What kind of levels of performance that would be needed to be competitive. So I kind of tapered off senior athletics, but with that focus of sort of keeping going for another 3 years or so to then become a master. And there are other guys that I know that were ahead of me at the time, and they were really kind of lauding how great it is to compete, and those guys are successful, winning medals at European and world levels. So it was all set up for me to step into that arena.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Des, why do you think that when you get over a certain age, obviously for different sports it's different ages, but there seems to be a real stigma around like writing athletes off? And obviously there is a limit, I imagine, but I mean it's relative, isn't it? And I guess the consultant that told you not to run again or go and choose another job, it'd be quite interesting to go back and talk to him about what made him make that decision, because that's a life-changing call to make on someone who's got actually a lot of years left in them.
Well, I'll bring you up to the most recent operation, the shoulder injury.
Collecting operations.
Yeah, in 2017. So that operation was 2016. In 2017, I came back and I won the British title. And then in 2018, I got a silver medal in the European Indoor Championship. So I had a follow-up appointment with them just to see how I was getting on. So I took my medals with me and showed him what I'd achieved since the surgery. And he was just so humble and just, honestly, I'm gonna use you as a case study. And that's what he said. He would use me as a case study for future recovery from operations.
Yeah.
But going back to your question, the stigma, yeah, there is a stigma. But we had an Olympic champion at the age of 33, Linford Christie. I think he was 34, 35. And he was running at his optimum then. For me, it's never too late. And Stan will probably concur with this, and you yourself, from a physiology point of view, we're going to lose a bit of speed, a bit of power, but we're all individuals, and there's no set pattern to how people can peak at different ages. Look at Kim Collins, who's I think he's just over 40 now, and he broke the world masters record 990 something at the age of 40. So it's very, very easy to write people off, but it's a dangerous thing as well, I think.
Yeah it's fascinating, isn't it? What do you think separates? Because I guess you could, like, I have a lot of patients that come into the clinic. So I had one a couple of days ago. She said to me, ever since my 40th birthday, I woke up after my 40th birthday, and that was it. That was it. And I think there's this kind of thing in people's minds when they cross 40. It's like, oh my God, that is it, game over. I'm actually a bit worried because it's my 40th birthday in about 5 weeks or so, and I'm thinking, well, maybe they're right. Maybe there's something in this 40, because maybe you just don't see many 40-year-olds out and about anymore, do you? Or like on the TV, and maybe that is, maybe I should be worried about it. But it's good to have you on tonight, because I know there's life after 40 now. So I'm raring to go now.
Most certainly. It's again stigma, and then the kind of it's a mindset, because when I turned 40, and this is one of the great things about joining Masters, it's a new beginning. So for me, it was like pressing the reset button and starting all over again, knowing that I could be competitive with people within the same age bracket. So there's nothing better than that, because you know that you're going to be competing. For example, with Masters, it's in 5-year increments. So anyone between the age of 40 and 45 you will be competing against. So I just got a new zest of enthusiasm. And I think I probably, in my first year at 40, I was training harder, if not as hard as I did when I was in my mid-20s to prepare for that particular year.
Yeah, it's interesting. The mindset thing's interesting. Did you have particular, like obviously you go on the track and you train to run faster, but how did you train your mind to get to the level that it's at now? Because obviously it's no mean feat that you're still competing at the age that you're at, but we shouldn't be so surprised because it does come down to mental performance, doesn't it? So how do you go about training that?
Well, for me, I've been in athletics since I was 15, so wow. It's part of my DNA, and I'm so passionate about the sport. So initially, if you've got that fire and passion about anything, then you're going to have, you're going to reach levels that are probably beyond what you could potentially reach. So for me, it wasn't very difficult because I was as competitive as a senior. Stepping into that arena with that transition and just kind of merging into being competitive as a master was even more a motivation for me. And you've got to be sensible as well. You know that you've got to work a bit smarter. You've got to train smarter, and that's the big adaptation really from a senior to being a master. Because there's this perception, or there can be, especially the younger guys now who go in at 35. A lot of them are still, running quick. So for example, for 100 meters, they may be running, sub 11 seconds at the top 35-year-old masters. Now, yes, for the first 2 years, they may maintain and retain those levels of performance, but suddenly you find, and I found this in my kind of mid-40s, there is a drop off. So what you then have to do is manage your own expectations, and you have to know that you are going to, decrease in speed, and it's all about maintaining as much as possible. So that's how I've managed it over the years. So pressing the reset button, managing expectations, and seeing where you're going to be in terms of being competitive at European and world level, because it's happening to everybody else as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you get the odd one or two that it doesn't, but that happens in any sport.
Well, you're lucky. You're lucky if it does happen to you, right? Because the only way it doesn't happen to you is if you do you're a goner. But yeah, I mean it's incredible. So in terms of like achieving longevity in the sport, hurdling's a pretty tough sport to be good at, even at a junior level. But as you get older, your hips are going to get stiffer, your body's going to change.
Yeah.
What do you think is the key to success hurdling or doing competitive track and field in the later years, like over 40?
Yeah. Well, one of the advantages is that the hurdle height goes down slightly.
Yeah.
But the distance between the hurdles, particularly from 40 to 49, is exactly the same as a senior. So that is the difficult part. I've always been blessed with having a good hurdling technique. So I've been able to modify that to the lower hurdles. And what I've had to work on, and this is where Stan could come in, is the speed element and running in between the hurdles. That for me has been the most challenging aspect. So in terms of longevity, I think, and I've only learned this in recent years, is that you really have to have a good team of people around you in terms of, for your therapy, for massage, for me personally, one of the areas that I have problems with, which is down to wear and tear, is lower back problems. So my SI joints, pelvis, and all of the glute muscles it's really taken its toll. So it's just having to manage that as best possible, and taking time out. So I have a lot more rehab and recovery days now, more than I used to. I used to think I could still train like a 25-year-old when I was 45, and it's just not possible.
Yeah.
So I think now, and especially since I turned 50, I think I'm now adding more years to, you know, my career rather than, you know, looking at where I'm going to hang up those spikes just by being sensible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible. I think, Stan, did we see Des training up at Luton a couple of months ago?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Yes,
You
we did,
you moved quite well, Des, if I must say so. You moved
thank you.
well.
Thank you.
I was very surprised because Stan said to me, look, that's Des over there. And he said, that's like a master's level athlete. And I thought, George, do you know what? I hope I move as well as that when I'm over 40. It is impressive.
Thank you very much.
Machine.
Well, I think I've had the benefit. A lot of people who are in masters actually have a break before they then join the masters, or they've never done it before.
Right.
I've continued right through. But there's a flip side to that. You know, I've had a lot of injuries and I've had to take a bit of time out to recover. But the muscle memory, and I know you specialize in, you know, neuro techniques and all that kind of stuff. I just think the body naturally still moves as it always has. It's innate in a way, and then with that template, and we can modify that, and you know, the likes of people like Stan can make those fine tuning and tweaks to improve even more, because I believe that I can run faster than I did when I was 50. And there are certain things I need to do to change that.
That's a really interesting point you've made there. And the words that you use, I believe, that says to me that this guy, he's got it in here, because I think the thing about the stigma that I don't like is that when you label people like that and you say, well, over the age of 40 or whatever age it is, these people, they can't run, or they shouldn't be able to do that. If you're not careful, that attitude feeds into the person who probably could have achieved a lot of things and had the belief that they've just had it torn away from them because a specialist has told them they can't run, or you're never going to run again. And it's only like someone that's going to be of like very strong character that's going to be able to say, well, actually, do you know what? I'm going to prove you wrong. I believe I can do this. I'm going to prove you wrong, and not like a vendetta type of wrong, but
no.
Be interested to see if I could still do this.
Yeah,
and that's, you know, I know since a very young age, when I was a youth, a junior, I've always had that in me. This is something that it's very hard to teach people. That element, you can talk about it, you could advise, but it has to be inside. You have to have that belief and that faith. I've got faith in myself, and I know I've got God in my corner, and I just know that if I just take the right footsteps, then I can achieve, and I can achieve anything that I can possibly achieve.
Yeah. It's such a powerful thing. Now, I know something else that you've got inside you, Des. You got a lot of medals, haven't you, my friend?
Quite a few. Only
medals. I want to see the gold. Where's the gold?
He's
got it there. He's got it there. No, that's amazing. Look at the size of that. That's amazing.
So this one's actually my favourite gold medal as a master. I won this the European Indoor Championships in Spain in 2013. And it was 10 years after I'd won my first European title, and it was exactly the same venue. So I won it at 40 and I also won it at 50. And that year, and talking about the mental side of things, I broke the British record. I was unbeaten. I felt like I was invincible that year. Was #1 in the world as well, and that catapulted me into kind of links well with the next question, but it catapulted me into the outdoor preparation, where I got involved and got working with Stan.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one of my favourite achievements.
Yeah.
Among many others.
Well, Des, do you mind if I could ask you a quick question? What does it feel like to feel invincible? How would you describe that feeling? Because I think there's something about it, isn't there?
Yeah, it's not an arrogance thing. What it is that if you've done the work, and there is a bit of fortune involved, or I call it a blessing, because that year, you know, I'd had a few little niggles. I didn't have any major injuries to stop the consistency of the training. So I knew that I was in good shape. So that's the first stage. I was in really good shape. So the next bit was just saying, right, if I transfer what I've done in training to competition, then I'm going to be difficult to beat. And then as the indoor season unfolded, that's what happened. And there's some really good guys, British level and obviously European. And every time I stepped out onto the track, because being successful and winning, if you can get into that habit, then it brings in that positivity and that feeling that if someone's going to beat me, they're going to have to run really well. And I just had that shield of yes, I'm gonna be successful today if I run my race. I think that's the best way I could describe it.
Yeah.
So, Des, I hope you don't mind me asking. There's a Facebook friend of ours, Fiona Lafferty. So, hi, Fiona. How are you? Nice to hear from you. But Fiona wants to know, what's the longest time that you spent away from training and track regarding injury and rest? And then she said, sometimes a long time away can deter athletes from coming back as veterans and masters. And you must have seen quite a few people in your time that have succumbed to injury as well. But what's the longest time you've been away from the track?
Well, the long time as a master was 4 years ago when I tore my rotator cuff. So it was identified that I tore it in December of 2015. So I stopped all forms of training and couldn't run. I couldn't move my arm. So from December that year up until probably I had the surgery in March. I think it was June, July. I started actively running again. I was doing just very, very minimal rehab, shoulder rehab, and I was in a sling for quite some time as well. So probably about 7 months, 8 months. But at no time I was thinking of it wasn't going to deter me. You know, all I was thinking about was, when can I start running again? That wasn't even an option that I was gonna be, you know, inhibited or put off from running again.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So the world bronze medal, how do you think you achieved that? That's an impressive feat.
Yeah, it was hard work. It was my first outdoor medal. Sorry, world outdoor medal. So that meant a lot to me. But I think I covered what happened in the indoors, and I think that really helped with the transition into the outdoor season. So at that time, I think it was around about mid-April, I contacted Stan, and we had a meeting, and I asked him to help me to prepare for the Worlds, which weren't until October. And the championships were in Brazil, so their summer is a bit later than ours. So it was a very, very difficult period to peak for, after coming off the indoors and then having to wait another 6 months for a major final. So Stan and I sat down, and Stan put together a plan where, as normally in April after the indoors, you then go into preparation for the outdoor season. So more of a kind of a speed endurance phase or block. But what we did is strip it right back to then doing almost like a mini winter in April going into May. So it was a bit unusual, but I trust in Stanley, and so he held me back to then put some fuel back in the tank basically, and say, well, you're not going to need to peak until October, so we need to make sure that that you're held back. So I remember the schedule, the race schedule that we put together. It was a minimal amount, so I only had 4 or 5 of those races from June right up until September, and they were all scheduled for kind of towards the end of that month, so kind of at the end of a cycle. And I remember that mentally I did find it difficult, because I came off the indoors on high, and then I had a few dips. I remember kind of May, June, July time, both physically and mentally. But what I did is that I did take time out. I did rest. I had easier weeks. And I looked at my schedule earlier today, actually, and I noticed that every time I took the time out, I especially the race at the end of June, I raced really well. I ran a world lead time at the end of June that year. So I knew again I was in good shape, and all we had to do was just maintain and then hit the markers at the right time. So Stan's schedule, the speed element of the preparing for the races in October, the real speed didn't kick in until late August, September. And I remember that block being very intense, knowing, but I also knew that was tuning me up to be competitive in the Worlds. Does that bring back any memories, Stan?
Yeah, well, absolutely, Des, and I'm just impressed that you remember it all so quite clearly. Almost 7 years ago that we did that plan. But I think my contribution here would be that as a coach working with a masters, it has its own challenges, because you're working with somebody that is knowledgeable. You're working with somebody that has got experience, and in this case, a vast experience about what they want to do. And so why they come to you is really they're looking for marginal gains. How do I sort myself? As he has pointed out, between now and the outdoor, the World Championships, which was about 7-8 months away. So we had to look for areas within his technical model where we could make the little gains that he needed. But the first of all, was to look at the program and put it in line with when the championships was going to be, and then decide just how much resource in terms of biomotor abilities has he got, and how can he spend them wisely so that he's got enough left to perform at the platform that matters, which was the World Championships. So a discussion there, this is where the beauty of working with a masters and experienced athlete comes in, because they put in very succinct input into their training plan. Eventually, they own the training plan. Excuse me. My job as a coach there is just to put in the technical elements and consider and spread that across the team. And then we have to look at the hurdler himself. He's a fine hurdler, Des. He's a fine hurdler. But you still have to find ways and margins within that technical model on where are we going to get the milliseconds that we need to compete at that top level on that top platform. So that's what we spent time on. I remember changing his language. You can imagine trying to change his language at that, at that time. I said, Des, no, we don't have a trail leg. You don't have a lead leg. You don't have a trail leg. Now, these are common language terms. So we have to find ways to get his enthusiasm back via, language symbols. I say, instead of this being your lead leg, let's call it, this is your attack leg. And with that, I'm bringing out the functional element in his technical model. And what you're calling your trail leg, let's change that. Let's call it your drive leg. So he's got a functional approach now to something that he's already used over the many years to, calling trail lead leg and trail leg. But all of a sudden, now he's got a different challenge because he's using a different language to call that. And you can see the zip that was coming in that attack leg. You can see the drive coming on as he comes away from the hurdle. Because the hurdles, essentially, it's about speed to that hurdle and speed away from that hurdle and speed in between the hurdles. So working on those three technical components and removing and reducing the inhibitions and the barriers there, we were able to get him ready for the World Championships, where he performed so amazingly well.
Thank you, Stan.
Brilliant. Stan, I'll come back to that in a second. Terry Vaughan's got a question about what do you do to keep the motivation going, Des?
It's a personal thing. As I say, because I've been in the sport for so long, it's for me, it's like getting up and brushing your teeth every morning. I just want to go and equip myself every time to see how I can be the best me. So first of all, I'm competing against myself. Secondly, I know who the best masters hurdlers are in the world in my age group, and a lot of us have followed each other throughout these years. So the motivation is that, and the great thing about masters is that there's a lot of humility. So we're all up to achieve them. There's 3 medals on the podium, and each and every time there are different people who are going to get them. So that the real motivation is like, well, you've had your turn, now this is my turn. My turn to get where I need to be, and again, it's just focus, and even talking about it now, I can feel myself getting excited about the next championships, and that's what keeps me going. I think, and I've spoken to a lot of the top, the athletes, the Olympians, the guys like Tony Jarret and Linford Christie, Colin Jackson. Those guys, they achieved everything, at the highest level. I see Tony Jarret regularly at Lee Valley, and he every time he sees me, he shakes his head and says, "How do you still do it?" I was broken at 32. And I didn't want to do it anymore. And sometimes I said to him, sometimes I don't even know I'm doing it. It's autonomous, and there's a fire burning that hasn't gone out yet. And that's the best way I can describe it. The fire the flame is still there.
That's beautiful.
I hope that's answered his question.
Really nice. I'm sure you'll be very happy with that. Stan, you mentioned something very interesting about the language, which from a neurological perspective, that's very clever, because it's what you're doing. You're tapping into subconscious metaphorical language that it's empowering the athlete by talking or having that self-talk and programming the self-talk to be not lead and trail, but like, I can't remember what you said, drive and attack. Drive and attack, very powerful words, which from a vocabulary point of view, if you're telling yourself drive and attack, I can feel that fire that you've got inside you, Des, right now. It's like burning inside me. It feels, doesn't it? It's very, very clever, very interesting. It's very interesting.
Very emotive.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there is power in the language symbols, and that's why we choose certain words to express our certain emotions at different times. And that's why people, others sound more convincing than others because of the language symbols that they choose. And as a coach, that's that's a vehicle that I have to find, develop, and use in transmitting that to the athletes, because motivating them is one of my key roles, and I could not motivate them with a tired language, a pedestrian language, because that will not move them, especially if, in Des's case, they have heard it all, they have seen it all. How are you going to speak to them in a manner that, sparks up their enthusiasm in a different way? So there's got to be something within at that point, where at the meeting point, and the meeting point is the language. And so for me, it is very, very key to have a linguistic repertoire to pass on and communicate my intention, the movement targets, and the motion functions that I want the athlete to elicit. Because before they can elicit those movement patterns, they have to be able to have a cognition, they must be able to have, cognition about it. They must be able to, to see it and picture it. If that picture is blurred, I'm just giving them a whole lot of work to do and very less motivation for them. So that picture has got to be succinct. There's got to be precision in the picture that I'm painting in their mind.
Yeah.
And to do that, I need very precise language. Yeah. And that language will be different from athlete to athlete.
Yeah.
Because of their social context and their social backgrounds.
Out of interest, why did you use the words attack and drive for Des?
Because attack would, enthuse in him and induce in him a responsibility where he has to do something more than what he has been doing before. In the manner of, his technical ability, in the manner of going over the hurdle. By attacking it, the hurdle is no longer part of his race. When I say attack the hurdle, he does not consider it as part of his race. It's something that needs to be dealt with immediately and gotten rid of. It's not part of it. It's not time to float over like a gazelle. No, hell no. This is the time to attack and get away from it quickly. So using that dismissive language of that object, in my mind, it helps for them not to concentrate on it, and therefore it becomes an inhibitor.
Yeah.
Suddenly the hurdle starts getting taller, starts getting higher, because they're overthinking about it. How should I get over it? But by using language that is offensive in that manner, they become very dismissive of the challenge. Their own personal resources rise, and therefore, the challenge itself starts subsiding in their mind. If I can get it in their mind, their body will get through on it.
Yeah, very clever. Very good, very good. Well, clearly it's working for you, Des.
Yes, yeah, and picking up what Stan was saying there, one of the things, as in generally, but also in sport, we have to be taken outside our comfort zone from time to time. That's the only way you're going to improve. And using the metaphors that Stan did, then for me, I knew that what it then made me do is run over the hurdle a lot more aggressively, rather than, as I say, I am technically efficient, but what it added was that speed element. And I think sometimes, even as concentrated as you are and in the zone that you are, there are times when you hit the flat spot. And in fact, that flat spot cost me that was the difference between winning the gold at that World Championships and instead of the bronze, because coming off the 8th hurdle, I was in the lead,
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Well, listen, we've got to go, but Des, could we trouble you to leave our viewers for 3 top tips of how to get past 40? This isn't just for me, so don't worry about it. But how to get past 40 and survive in your sports? I'd love to know. What's the secret? 3 tips.
Well, the first thing is don't invest in a pipe and slippers and think that, you know, because you're that age you have to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the first thing I would say is that just set a goal, set an individual goal for yourself. If we're talking about athletics, say, well, okay, may not be the best in the world, but I can go in with an individual goal that I can set myself. And if I quit myself against everybody else, let's see where it gets me. And if you can tick that box and say, I've achieved that goal, hopefully that'll inspire you to carry on and to improve. So I would say set a goal, research the masters scene, have a look at the rankings, Great Britain rankings, the world ranking, European rankings, and see where you could potentially be. You know, if you could be in the top 10, top 20, top 30, hopefully that might motivate you to, you know, put the work in and achieve whatever you're aspiring to achieve. I would also say, get a good network of people around you, the right people, focused and motivated people from a medical perspective, you know, so your physios, your massage therapists, coaches, and also the people that you train with, so your peers. And if you get that right, then you're giving yourself a fighting chance to remain fit. It's always difficult. Legislate when we're going to get injured, but just do the research, prepare, and get the right network around you, which will enable you, to whatever level that may be, to be the best you. Yeah, I think, was that 3? Probably about 6, wasn't it?
There's so much value in that, it's unheard of. So I think we'll let you off even if it was 2. But I'm thinking, how can I use that? How can I use that? It's awesome. Thank you so much, Des. Listen, hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. We're trying to go big time with the Perfect Balance Power Hour. So if you've really enjoyed the show tonight, we'd love you to share it with your audience, and we'd love to hear back from you of what you found interesting about Des's talk tonight, what you find motivational, because I know some people it's really struck a chord with, and certainly it's me, it struck a chord with directly. So thank you so much, Des. It's been inspirational. And Des, we'll definitely have to get you back. I'd love to pick your brains on life and choose back this interesting issue.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. And thanks very much, Steve, for having me on. And thank you, Stan. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, good. Well, listen, for now, it's bye-bye from me. And thank you so much to Stan and Des for coming on board and sharing the evening with us. It's been great. But yeah, thank you very much. And thank you guys for listening as well. It's great to see you guys. Take care.
All good.